Chapter 4. The Cavern Clops. Marvin rolled down a slippery cavern wall and went under water. When he came up, he was 20 feet farther from where he had gone under, and getting carried in the current of an underground river. All that Marvin could hear was the river's gurgle. All that he could see was what was lit up by torches on the cavern walls. He went uneasily with the flow in this eerie place, which happened to be the home of a monster with the lower body of a fish and the upper body of a horribly mutated man. Known as the Cavern Clops, the beast was 7 feet long and weighed 425 pounds without an ounce of fat on him. He kept himself in great shape by swimming laps in the cavern, but he didn't swim the laps for his health. He swam them for his appetite. Every evening after swimming his laps, he came out of the cavern hungry enough to eat a horse, or maybe 2 horses. With his powerful arms and big clawed hands, he pulled himself out of the river and quietly onto the land. And too bad for any animal that didn't know that the monster was sneaking up on them. The Cavern Clops swam 20 laps a day, never more, never less. He hadn't missed a day in 16 years, since coming down with food poisoning after eating a bad buffalo. He was swimming his laps now. On the second leg of his 18th lap, he was doing the backstroke. Marvin heard something coming up fast behind him. Looking back, he saw the monster, and he shuddered at the sight. The beast didn't see Marvin until he came alongside him, and he was so surprised to see a duck in the cavern that he lost his backstroking rhythm and went awkwardly under water with his tail sticking straight up in the air. When he came back up, the Cavern Clop spat out a mouthful of water and resumed doing the backstroke. Marvin watched the monster do the backstroke until he was out of sight. But then the hideous creature came back in sight, back toward Marvin, now doing the breaststroke. As he passed Marvin on the first leg of his 19th lap, the beast turned his ugly face and said, "1.5 more laps, and then I'll have you for my appetizer." Marvin was terrified. "It's all Cool Regis's fault," he said, wanting desperately to get out of the cavern before the monster finished swimming 1.5 more laps. The Cavern Clop's stomach was growling for him to stop at 19 laps, but his mind was stronger than his stomach when it came to swimming his laps. "No," the beast told himself, "I'm not stopping at 19. I'm doing 20 like I always do." With a determined turnaround flip, the Cavern Clop started doing the crawl on the first leg of his 20th lap. With duck in his stomach on his mind, the Cavern Clops picked up his pace, and picked it up some more. The monster's arms were going like whirligigs in a windstorm. He was cutting through the water like he had a motor on his back. As he sped by Marvin, the beast said, "Up and back, and then I'm coming for you." Marvin was scared quackless. There was still no light showing the end of the tunnel, and there was nowhere to hide on the slippery cavern walls. Scared stiff, he watched the monster go up and out of sight, and then come back in sight, now doing the butterfly. The Cavern Clop's powerful tail was kicking up big waves as he butterflew faster than he had ever butterflown before. He was butterflying so fast that he was skipping on the water. When he skipped by Marvin, his tail kicked up a wave that took Marvin under water. Marvin stayed down for so long that he came up gasping for air. By the time he finally caught his breath, the Cavern Clops had finished his 20th lap and was coming toward him, coming to eat him. Marvin knew that he shouldn't look back, but he couldn't help it. The Cavern Clops was almost upon him. Marvin stopped paddling and accepted his fate. "It's all Cool Regis's fault," he said. The monster's head shot out of the water. "Now for my appetizer," he said, and then screamed, "Ow! Ow! 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 Ow!" The Cavern Clops had a cramp in his tail. In his eagerness to eat the duck, he had swum faster than he should have swum, and was now paying the painful price. "Ow! Ow! 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 Ow!" the beast screamed while holding his tail. Marvin wasn't a dead duck yet, but he had to get out of the cavern before the monster recovered. "This cramp is killing me," he heard the beast scream as he started paddling again with all of his might. Finally Marvin saw a speck of light. There was an opening. He had reached the end of the cavern. He got to the opening as fast as he could and paddled out into open air, where the river narrowed and ran through a forest. Chapter 5. Comic Refuge. It had become dark. Marvin got out of the river and ran to the trunk of the nearest tree. An owl in the tree heard Marvin step on a twig that went snap and said, "Who? Who?" Marvin knew that he'd been heard and maybe seen. Me, he said. Where? Here? Okay, now I see you. I can't see very clearly, though. My eye doctor made a mistake and gave me daytime glasses instead of nighttime glasses. Still, they're better than nothing. Anyway, come on up. Marvin figured that going up was better than staying down. He went to the base of the tree and heard a buzz that enabled him to open the door. Inside the tree, there was an elevator. On his way up, Marvin thought about how he should introduce himself. He decided to give the name of one of the students in his algae appreciation class at Duckmont High, Jackie Quacky. When the elevator opened, Marvin stepped out and saw a door with the name Yoo-Hoo on it. The owl opened the door as Marvin was about to knock. "Welcome. I'm Yoo-Hoo. Come in," he said. Marvin stepped inside and opened his bill to say that his name was Jackie Quacky, but all he said was, "My name is," because you beat him to the name by saying, "Marvin Mallard." "No, my name is Jackie Quacky," Marvin insisted. "Yeah, sure, Marvin. Your escape attempt is all over the news. They said that you're from Forngle and that you're flying impaired. What did you do?" "I splashed a zebra," Marvin admitted, and added, "I got tricked into doing it." "You got 3 months for splashing a zebra?" you asked in disbelief. "I was on probation. I'm a fool, I know it." "Well, at least you know it. Do you know anything about a magic medallion that helps you get wised up?" "No, it's probably just a myth." "Are you going to turn me in?" You looked into Marvin's eyes. Despite his attempt to pass himself off as Jackie Quacky, you could see that Marvin Mallard was an honest duck. He couldn't bring himself to turn in an honest, flying-impaired duck. "Just out of curiosity, what would you do if you got wised up?" you asked. "I'd stay out of trouble," Marvin answered. "That's not a bad answer," you replied. "It's not a good answer, but it's not a bad answer. No, I'm not going to turn you in. You're safe here, on one condition." "What's that?" Marvin asked. You led Marvin into his living room. "I'm a retired soldier," he began. "I was a captain in the Jugaloo Nocturnal Air Force. After retiring, I started entertaining the troops with some stand-up comedy. I was a big hit at places like the Pigsty and the Pink Flamingo Lounge. I even had my own comedy troupe, the Yoo-Hoo Review. But then I got comics block, and the only animals that laughed at my jokes were the hyenas. Even the seals stopped clapping. At my last performance, the crows cackled, the cats made catcalls, and the bluebirds turned into boo-birds. The chickens threw eggs at me. It was brutal. But I've got some new material that I've been wanting to try out. So the condition for you to remain here safely is to be my audience. Have a seat." Marvin's rear end was sore in the spot where the bloodhound had bitten feathers out, so he sat down carefully. He clapped when you got up on a stool before him with a toy microphone. Thank you, you began. "Thanks for that warm welcome. It makes me feel right at home. Hey, what a crowd. I hope you didn't all come here just to get out of the heat. Wow, it was hot today. It was so hot that—" You stopped talking. Somebody was coming. A lot of somebodies were coming, and they were coming fast. You could tell that they were canines. They weren't barking, so it wasn't Sergeant Barker and his bloodhounds, which was lucky for Marvin. As they got closer, you could tell that they were foxes. "Shh," he said to Marvin, and went out on his balcony. A battalion of foxes was on the ground below. Who? You inquired. "Soldiers," answered the commanding officer, Colonel Redfur. Why? "We're searching for a Drake Mallard that's trying to escape. He was in the cavern just a few minutes ago. If he's still alive, he may have come this way. Have you seen him?" "No, but I can't see very well. My eye doctor made a mistake and gave me daytime glasses instead of nighttime glasses. But a couple minutes ago I heard some quacking going that way." "It must have been Marvin Mallard," Colonel Redfur said, and led the charge in the direction that you had pointed to. You came back inside smirking. "I just outfoxed a fox," he said, and then he hiccuped. Marvin laughed because you hiccuped, but you thought that Marvin laughed at what he said. "Yeah, that was hiccup. Pretty funny, wasn't it? I just hiccup made it up. Hey, Maybe I'll go out and hen-peck a hen, and hiccup, bear hug a bear, and hog-tie a hog, and hiccup, mock a mockingbird, hiccup. Marvin was quacking up but holding his bill shut to keep his laughter inside. You could almost see his name back in lights at the Pigsty and the Pink Flamingo Lounge with an all-new Yoo-Hoo review. I'd better stop ad-libbing before you explode with laughter and get us both in a whole lot of trouble, he said without hiccuping. You had stopped hiccuping, so Marvin stopped laughing. You've been a wonderful audience, and I'm going to show my appreciation by helping you escape, you said. There's a gopher who lives near here. His name is Digger Von Under. He owes me a big favor for sparing his life after I caught him at his back entrance. I often spare the lives of animals because you never know when you might need a big favor. Anyway, my hedgehog friend, Millie Quilly, told me that Digger Von Under is one of the frustrators who want to bring down this prison state and replace it with a liberal state. One of the things the frustrators do to frustrate the authorities is help prisoners escape. Since I retired, I've become a little sympathetic to their cause. Don't quote me on that, though. You picked up his phone and dialed H for Hopperator. He told the grasshopper running the switchboard to connect him to Digger Von Under. And he'd better not call Millie Quilly a liar if he knows what's good for him, you told Marvin while waiting for Digger to answer the phone. Digger worked at the prison as a janitor, but he was first and foremost a frustrator, and he was deeply, very deeply involved in a secret underground railroad called the Secret Underground Railroad. He told you on the phone that he was not, absolutely not, a frustrator, and he called Millie Quilly a big, fat, dirty liar. He stopped his denials only when you threatened to notify the authorities, and he ended up apologizing for calling big, fat, dirty Millie Quilly a liar. You put his old back to the test and flew Marvin silently to Digger Von Under's back entrance, where Digger was waiting. As soon as I do this, we're even, Digger told you. No, we're not, you replied. This Mallard is flying impaired. The authorities will be very frustrated if they can't capture a flying-impaired duck, and you know it. I'm helping you and your fellow frustrators by giving you the opportunity to really frustrate the authorities. So now you owe me 2 big favors. Goodbye. Chapter 6. Digger and the Frustrators. Digger pulled Marvin by the bill while backing himself up through his tunnel system until they made it to his carpeted living room. You don't have enough time to make yourself at home, but I'll give you something to drink, Digger said. Digger put a special blend of fermented roots into a teacup, added hot water, and let it steep. They said on the news that you got just 3 months, he commented. Why try to escape? If they catch you, they're going to lock you up and throw away the key. I just wanted to get away from the fire. Now that I think about it, that giraffe probably tricked me. I'm such a fool. Do you know anything about a magic medallion that helps you get wised up? No, but what's your idea of getting wised up? Staying out of trouble. Digger laughed. You seem to be an honest duck, Marvin Mallard. I wish you luck in getting wised up, but it's going to take more than luck. Well, let's get you going. I've already called ahead. They're expecting you. But first, drink this. Digger handed Marvin the cup of tea. He watched Marvin drink it and made sure that he swallowed it. Then he said, That was a potion. It's going to make you forget everything that has happened to you in the last 30 minutes and everything that will happen to you in the next 30 minutes. It's standard procedure. We do it for security reasons so that our secret railroad stays a secret. Now let's get down to business, and when I say down, I mean way down. Step off the carpet. Digger rolled up the carpet and took the cover off a hole in the floor. Be careful, it's steep, he said, and put on a miner's hat for the descent. They climbed down a long ladder to a train platform. An empty electric train was there on one of 2 sets of tracks. Digger got into the driver's cab, put on a train engineer's hat, and started the engine. All aboard, he shouted. Marvin got on board in the passenger car, but he stayed standing because his rear end was still sore. The train jerked forward, and Marvin went off balance backward. He reached for the nearest thing to grab hold of to keep himself from falling, and that thing happened to be the fire alarm. The train came to an abrupt stop. Wearing a fireman's hat, Digger came running back into the passenger car. wildly spraying a fire extinguisher with a hose pointed at himself by mistake. After scooping white foam away from his eyes and seeing that it was a false alarm, Digger brushed white foam away from his mouth and said, "I'm not going to let you pull another stunt like that. You're coming up front with me." In the cab with Digger, Marvin sat on his sore behind and looked ahead as the train moved on. A light appeared. A train was coming on the other track. The driver was a mole rat, and the leading contender for this year's Frustrator of the Year award. Her name was Molina Rootchomper. She and Digger stopped their trains alongside each other. "Is that you, Digger?" Molina asked upon seeing Digger's face covered with white foam. "You forgot the carrot for your nose if you're going to a masquerade party as Frosty the Snowman." Digger brushed off more foam. "I had an accident with a fire extinguisher. But look who I've got here with me." "That's the fugitive Marvin Mallard." "Yes, you may have heard that he's flying impaired. That would make his escape all the more frustrating for the authorities. Digger, this is huge. Is there anything I can do to help?" "No, Spinny Webber is getting everything set up." "Great, but be careful, Digger. Military presence is really beefed up in the no-go zone, and I don't mean with cows." "Okay, Molina. By the way, Millie Quilly tipped Yoo-hoo off about me. I may have to start thinking about getting myself out. They say that the dirt is browner in Willivanna anyway." "The dirt is always browner on the other side, Digger. Goodbye and good luck." Digger put the train back in drive, and Marvin's mind started drawing a blank. The potion was working. The last thing Marvin could remember was going up an elevator inside a tree to see an owl. He kept staring ahead as the train headed toward the no-go zone. Nighthawks and giant fruit bats now filled the skies of the no-go zone. Lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, and wild boars patrolled the area in front of the piranha-filled moat that separated Jugaloo from Willivanna. The authorities figured that Marvin Mallard was probably eaten by the cavern clops, but they weren't taking any chances. Battalions of snakes and lizards were scouring the ground. Troops of raccoons and opossums were out in full force. Loudspeakers in trees carried the warning, "Marvin Mallard, if you're still alive, give yourself up now or you'll be sorry." Digger drove the train to the end of the line, 100 feet short of the no-go zone. Ready and waiting was a fellow frustrator, a moon rat named Subby Lee Burrows. "Digger, don't you know that you're supposed to put shaving cream on before you shave, not after?" joked Subby Lee. "I had an accident with the fire extinguisher," answered Digger. "Hurry up and get the Mallard out. I've got to get back." Subby Lee went around to the other side of the train and opened the door. "Follow me," he told Marvin, and led him to an elevator. "I'd introduce myself," he said, "but you're not going to remember meeting me, so I won't." The elevator took them up, all the way up to the undercover of a weeping willow. Moonlight trickling through the leaves enabled Marvin to see, and what he saw was the biggest spider web he'd ever seen, a huge orb web, 4 feet in diameter, with thick webbing that extended to the ground. Only one kind of spider could spin webbing like that. Their Latin name was Nocturnus bigus growus arachnitus, but they were commonly called night growers. During the day they were just average-sized spiders, but after nightfall they grew so big that they could spin webs strong enough to catch a pheasant. A night grower swung down on a big thread and landed in the middle of the web. Marvin jumped back. Never in his wildest nightmares had he seen a spider this big. It was so big that he could see its face. Sticking out of its mouth like a cigar was a firecracker. Spinny Webber was this night grower's name. Some animals called her Spinny Seven Legs because one of her legs got blown off in a firecracker mishap. "I've got a slingshot web all set to go," she said. Spinny led Marvin to one of her special slingshot webs. She backed Marvin into the web and spun a thread to secure him in place. "You'll be getting slung shortly," she said, with the firecracker still in her mouth. "All you have to do is disconnect the seatbelt thread when the sling sends you from backward to forward." Spinny spun a thread from the slingshot web and pulled it out to where a caribou was sleeping. She tied the end of the pull line to the caribou's hind leg. Then she put the firecracker behind the caribou's rear end and lit it. Bang went the firecracker. Off ran the caribou from fast asleep to just plain fast. The slingshot web stretched back, 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 until Spinny cut the pull line. Marvin shot forward in the slingshot web. He disconnected the seatbelt thread and stayed in the web for a second before shooting through low-air space in the no-go zone as a shot in the dark with a shout in the dark. "It's so cool Regis's fault!" A nighthawk spotted the shooting duck and shouted, "Red alert!" A leopard saw Marvin and swung a paw at him but missed. Marvin shot across the no-go zone, over the piranha-filled moat, out of Jugaloo, and into Willivanna, where he hit the trunk of a tree and fell to the ground like a dead duck.